back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. And for our fourth segment, we're going to talk a little bit belatedly about one of the most groundbreaking signings in the MLB in this free agency cycle. The signing by the Dodgers of young Japanese pitching sensation Roki Sasaki. And for a lot of MLB franchises, this is one of the most heartbreaking, as the Dodgers add another stone to their infinity gauntlet and to an already highly formidable pitching rotation. But, granted, considering the fact that Sasaki was not going to be an expensive purchase for any team, why not have the Dodgers sign them? He was there for the taking for any team, because of the fact that as an international amateur, he would not have cost as much. And the Dodgers took advantage of that. And the Dodgers have now created a rotation where almost every single pitcher, maybe outside of Gonsolin and May, can win a game for you. And so that's what's probably going to be frustrating for a lot of fans of other franchises who thought they were going to be in the mix for this guy. But congratulations to LA for taking advantage. Like I said, it's a rookie arrangement for one of the best pitching phenoms Japan might have ever produced. And for that deal, LA got a bargain. And now you have a rotation that can put out Shohei Ohtani, Blake Snell, who you also just signed as well, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, Roki Sasaki, Clayton Kershaw, Gonsolin May, if they can get back into their 2020 form. And it becomes a truly formidable rotation that might be the best, in my opinion, in MLB history. But let's talk about the initial impact of this signing for the Dodgers and what it means for the future of their rotation, because it may well have been cemented for how cheap Sasaki came. Like I said, I was an international amateur, and because he did not, I believe, play 6 years professionally, he was able to be signed by various MLB teams for a rookie deal. And yes, the signing bonuses and posting fees still need to be figured out, but it's the equivalent of only $6 million for a guy of Sasaki's caliber. And if scouts and pundits alike are right about this guy, that's going to be a coup for the LA Dodgers. There have been worries about how he's performed over recent years, because he did see a little bit of velocity in some of his pitches lower, but ultimately in that league it was no sweat off his back because he still put up absurd numbers. And a lot of questions also were asked about where he could end up at the start of the season, because granted, as a quote-unquote rookie on a rookie contract, he could see himself in the minor leagues. And a lot of people feel that some of his pitches aren't as developed as others, and that could hold him back. But the pitches that are fully developed, his splitter, which is awarded an 80 grade, the best grade you could possibly get for Baseball America, could be enough to see him have a starting place in this rotation come April. So I do feel like this signing for the Dodgers could pay off in a major way no matter how you slice it. Whether you allow him time to grow and develop some of his pitches in the minor leagues to immediately start him out, but it's also going to be a question of how you view this rotation as well. Because while Sasaki's an incredible pitcher in his own right, he made us be the fourth or fifth best pitcher in this rotation. So you're going to have to figure out, right, how to schedule all these pitchers, who needs the rest, who doesn't, and if you want to give Sasaki the time of day and cementing him as, say, the ace of this rotation, much like other teams in the mix wanted him to be. And that's what makes this signing also so unusual, because Sasaki, like I said in recent segments about him, did want to be the number one guy for a lot of teams. He did want to be the guy that could go 7 or 8 innings. And for the Dodgers, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen right away. So I think that the Dodgers, for as good as they made themselves with all this offseason spending, have a weird conundrum. They just might be too good. And so, Sasaki's positioning in all of this is going to be a question that arises countless times. So, let's just talk about what he brings to the table, but also how the Dodgers could look from here on out. So let's talk about the concerns that may have arisen from MLB scouts and pundits about Sasaki. Because, like I said, from 2023 to 24, his velocity in the Japanese league, the major professional Japanese league, and average did lower. His strikeout rate dropped from an impressive 13.4 per 9 innings to 10.5. But the reason why no one's really panicking is because, listen to this. In a league with a 3.04 aggregate ERA, he's still over 111 innings in that same league had a 2.55 ERA. His worst is better than that Japanese league's best. And yes, the Japanese league is not as high caliber as the MLB. But the reason a lot of these Japanese pitchers succeed almost immediately as they come is because of the time they spend on the mound. And what I mean by that is they pitch well deeper into games than any modern MLB pitcher can. And that's what's really exciting about Roki Sasaki. Because for the future of the Dodgers, it presents to you someone in a very loaded rotation where, should that rotation, much like it has in the past, be befelled by injuries, can be an immediate stopgap for you. But it's also a question about how you develop him as well. Because if you see this decline and are worried by it, you don't necessarily want to test it and see it decline even more immediately. You might want to see him perform at a consistent level in a league equivalent to, say, or similar to the Japanese league, like the minor leagues, like AAA ball. And then see how his pitches develop, and subsequently, if the numbers go up again, before you supplant him in your rotation. And how that affects Sasaki is also going to be an important factor here. Because over there in Japan, Sasaki was the second coming of God to them, really. He was an incredible talent. He's still only 23 years old, and he feels himself like he can be the leader of an MLB rotation. But looking at this rotation and how it could balance out and who could potentially be in front of him, you have Shohei Ohtani, who, yes, because of his two-way abilities, may not be available as much as other pitchers. You now have Blake Snell. You now have Yamamoto as well, who could be making the case to be your ace as well for how well he's pitched. You have Glasnow, who a lot of people have forgotten about because of his injury that kept him out for most of the season last year, but still an elite pitcher, former Cy Young winner. Clayton Kershaw, one of the greatest Dodgers pitchers of this era. And then guys in Gonsolin and May, who, yes, haven't performed consistently, but are still elite. How Sasaki fits into all of that's going to be bizarre. I think that ultimately the pathway forward, if you're the Dodgers, is through the minor leagues. But I feel like just because you feel like your rotation is formidable and you can send it out there and it's going to perform at a high level, but also the fact that you have to be aware of injuries, Sasaki could start right away. And then in terms of how you line it up, lefty-righty, which in my opinion is very important for some reason. I feel like if you put a guy like Snell, who you spent big money on as well, number one, then Yamamoto, who's a righty, then Shohei, who I believe is ambidextrous in terms of batting, but not necessarily pitching. And then a guy like Glasnow, who's a lefty. That's an interesting debate here, because Sasaki's another righty hand. Funnily enough, all of the Japanese guys on this team are righties when it comes to pitching. So say it's Snell, Ohtani, Glasnow, and Yamamoto. That's where the bottom of the rotation gets interesting. If I remember correctly, I haven't seen these two guys in a while. Both Gonsolin and May, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, Dodgers fans, because I haven't seen them in quite some time, like I said. Both of them are lefties. So, if you're looking at this rotation, Sasaki could slide and perfectly say behind a Glasnow or a Kershaw. But, granted, he would be the 5 to 6 guy on this rotation because of how insane it is. So, I feel like there are ways you can integrate Sasaki into this team immediately, but maybe not to the point where he becomes the superstar he himself wants. But I do think that if you look at the future of this team and see guys like Kershaw and see guys like Glasnow age out potentially, and maybe Gonsolin and May not work out as well as you initially thought they would, then you start to see how a signing like Sasaki could bear fruit. Because you know that he's right there in terms of ability compared to, say, the lower end of this rotation. He might be better than Gonsolin and May already. And in terms of ability, in terms of timeline, in terms of injury status, he very well might be better than both Glasnow and Kershaw at this point. But it's going to be all about A, how the Dodgers invest in him, and B, how he invests in himself, not being the immediate superstar he could have been, say, with San Diego and Toronto, the two other finalists he had in mind. So overall, very intriguing signing for LA. I'm intrigued to see how this season initially goes. I'm intrigued to see where he starts off. I'm intrigued to see the trajectory of his first season as he adjusts to not necessarily being the biggest star on the team. But let me know what you think about the signing in the comments, because coming next, we're going to transition overseas, be talking some Premier League transfer updates for some of the top 6 teams and what they need to do for the rest of the window to ensure that they can improve. We'll be right back after this short break to talk about that to conclude today's show.